Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with a special treat for you all. I have 8th Air Force. This is the second edition. It's by Fortress Games. This was a Kickstarter that I did back. They had a couple of different versions. They had, I think it was the 20th and the 8th. So since I'm covering the 8th, it's the only one I ended up getting. I'm probably going to get the next one because I actually like the game. Right off the bat, I'll tell you straight up, they didn't send it to me. I backed the Kickstarter, so just FYI, these are my thoughts, all right? So what are we doing in 8th Air Force? In 8th Air Force, our goal is to bomb Germany, bomb the living shit out of Germany. And of course, that is awesome. It's in every game you want to kill a bunch of Germans. We are trying to take out their infrastructure, a little bit of everything that they've got going on. Their war industry, their fuel, their aircraft factories, railroads, submarine pins, bridge crossings, a little bit of everything's going on. And this game is going to take place from 1943 into 1949. And of course, everything's going to change throughout the course of this game. The aircraft are going to improve. You're going to get more aircraft. You're going to lose aircraft. Same thing's going to happen to the Germans, and potentially have jets get involved with the fight as well. So right off the bat, I want to say something, and that is the fact that 8th Air Force is deceptive. Okay. And what I mean by that is when I originally backed this game and I was looking at it and it kind of spitball, yeah, I'll get it. You know, a little beer and pretzels game, you know, just something to poke around at, have a little fun with. My original thought was that there wasn't that much game in here. You know, it would be a basic roll some dice, see what happens, see if you bomb a spot, and you know, that's it. But it is deceptive in the fact that it has more game in here than you would really anticipate it having. The replayability factor for this game is actually relatively high because no campaign is going to play out the same. You're going to have the same aircraft. So the German are going to have the same aircraft. You're going to have the same aircraft get involved in the fight at the same time because those aircraft were produced when they were produced, right? Where they are deployed on this map and where you deploy your own forces is going to be completely different every time you play this game because there is a core area, but there are 8 different lanes that you're going to be bombing different items on throughout the course of the game, and it's never going to be the same. Sometimes the Fokker Wolves might deploy down over here, sometimes they might deploy up here, sometimes it might spread out. You're never going to know, and in that same vein, you're not going to be able to come up with a set strategy. Now, of course, you're going to have to bomb some of the same targets. You know, if you don't bomb certain targets, you lose the game fairly quickly. So that is going to play the same, but in the way that it's never going to be a static defense. You're not going to be able to pencil anything in as this is what I do to win the game. It's never like that. It's always going to play out differently, which I got to give them props for. So that's what I mean with it being deceptive, that there is a substantially larger amount of game in the box. And this is a small box. I mean, look at that. This is a thin little box, right? There is a lot more of that in here than I was originally anticipating. And that was a nice surprise to have. So let's go over the components really quickly. And then I am going to play through a round or two just so you guys can see how the game is going to play. I'll give you kind of a basic gist of the flow and how it all works out. So we've got our map board here. Map board is divided 1 to 8, except 4 is down over here for some reason. It goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 4 down over here. 1, 2, and 3 are your core areas. So this is mainland Germany. This is where most everything that you really want to tear up is located here. So your war industries, which are represented by the black spots, the aircraft factories, which are represented by these green spots, and oil, so fuel, represented by these red spots. These are always going to be located here in these core areas, and these are main targets. You really want to take these targets out. However, there are other targets spread throughout the board, things like submarine pens over here, breakouts. You can even help with the D-Day landings. That's located over here. Then we have things like the river crossings, railroads, the V2 rockets located here. So there's a wide variety of targets that you can go after, but it's not just the targets themselves. They are located at different range bands. You've got your initial coastal area. Then you have what's called the interior, which is like your middle section. And then you have the deep lane. This is the farthest back section that you can go to. And when it comes to your aircraft that you're controlling can only go so far. Now your bombers, your heavy bombers, they can go wherever, anywhere they want to go on the board. But if you want to send fighter aircraft to guard them, because of course you want those escorts, your escorts can only go so far, and they will be rated as either coastal, interior, or deep. So you have to make sure you line up your escort fighters with the bombers that are going to be making whatever distance bombing run they're making. So I do want to mention our victory point track up here in the upper right, because it's different. Normally you think, hey, it's a victory point track. I get points for bombing shit and I put it on there. That's not how this works. And this victory point track, it will keep track of the ones digits and the tens digits all the way into the hundreds, but it's going to add points for the Germans. So they get points for things not being bombed, and you get points for bombing things. But there is a spot where you lose once the victory point track hits its maxed out point. So it's like 130 or 140 points, whatever, something like that, where it hits that point, and that's an auto lose. But you win if you take it 1 point back. All right. So it starts at 00 for both sets, ones and tens. And all it takes is 1 point in the other direction, and you win. And you're thinking, oh, great. Yeah, I bombed one thing, I win. No, it's not like that. Because when you're initially starting off, the Germans are going to have a lot of victory points. So that track's going to move upwards quite quickly in the start. So you have to kind of push it back after it makes an advance up the track. Now, there's a neat thing to it that at certain points of the game, if the victory point track is at such a level, you automatically lose at that point, because mathematically you can't bomb enough targets to win. You're doing so poorly that you can't win. So it's like, hey, if you are at X points at this turn, you're done. Your game's over, because there's no way for you to win. And that does change throughout the later on turns. You know, keeping track of it, you have to be able to knock those points back down to win. And if you can't bomb enough, then there's no point in continuing the game. So that's actually something neat. I thought that was interesting, and it threw me for a loop when I first started poking around at this game. I was, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. Why am I really effectively starting next to the I win button? That would make no sense. It does once you actually start playing the game, how the point track works, that you're going to have to work hard to kind of bring those points back down. Next to it, we've got our damage forces, and then off the map is where you keep your destroyed forces. So think of your destroyed forces pool as just planes to be built, all right? It doesn't matter if they haven't come on the map yet or whatever. Basically, you've got an off-map section where you'll keep planes that have been blown up or not produced yet, and then some forces get damaged. That's where you're going to place those, both Luftwaffe and U.S. Air Force, or U.S. Army Air Force, will be placed there. And certain times during the game, when you're reinforcing, the Luftwaffe will either bring these planes back, so they refit these, or they build new ones. And that's going to be dependent upon things like the aircraft factories and war factories that they have on the map, on what they get to bring back in to the fold, right? So your bombing campaign, if you do well enough, can actually reduce the amount of air forces that you have against you. You take out their air factories, they're going to produce less aircraft. It makes sense. It's perfect. I love it. Also, I'm not showing it. I've got my camera situated in such a way that you can see mainly the main map, but there is a large section at the bottom of the map right here below these tracks. And that's not really used for anything, but I do understand why they put that in there. And it's a good spot just to stage your own forces. It gives you kind of a hey, put your planes here space. And I like that. So it works really well. Below your numbers here, that's where you're going to keep your aircraft that you're getting ready to do missions with. So besides the map itself, we do have a selection of laser cut counters. Most of them are going to be aircraft. Some of them are going to be bombing targets and a few admin counters, stuff like that. I do make sure to mention that these are laser cut, so your hands can get a little dusty, a little bit of that soot on them. I like them. I have found that laser cut counters are much more sturdy than the traditional cardboard ones. These are like thick, almost wooden counters, so I really like those. I did clip one, see if I can get that to focus for you guys, just to see if it would do it. But honestly, you don't need to clip these counters. They punch out so well. The corners are fine. They're not jagged or ragged. You can see from the counters that I have on the map now. You don't have to clip them. You can if you want to. They're not so tough that you can't clip them, but you really don't have to if you don't. You do need to have one cup that you're going to put your bomb counters. They have random numbers on them, and those random numbers are going to be used later to determine what areas get repaired. So if, for example, we bomb this aircraft factory here at Munster, we would place a explosion counter next to it. That signifies the fact that it's been bombed, it's been taken out. But later on, during certain phases of the game, the Germans might repair that factory, and that's where that number is going to come into play. If they do, then you'll pull that counter back off. So the number doesn't represent, like I originally thought, like the power of the blast or how many hits you got or something like that. It has all to do with whether or not the Germans repair it. So these explosion counters do need to be kept in a cup off board that you can just draw from randomly. Doesn't matter, coffee cup, whatever you got. All right, before we hit the player aids, there are a couple of dice, and this one, you do need to kind of use their dice, or you need at least 2d6 that are different colors, because the player aids reference the red and the green d6. So you either have to, I mean, if you want to use your own d6s, like the double six dice that I use, I love those dice, definitely check them out. 12-sided die that has 2d6 effectively on it. If you want to use whatever, just make sure you keep track of the fact of which one is representing your red and your green, because that does matter for our player aids. And when it comes to the player aids, there are two, all right? You're going to have one that has your calendar. And there is, put this here, a little turn counter here that you will use to reference or keep track of which turn you're in, and that just slides down, so it's right underneath whatever month you're in. So if you can see here, it's January, February, March, April, starting here in 1943, then it goes 1944, 1945. You're just going to slide this down to keep track of what turn you're in or what month you're in. That is going to matter for what aircraft come in, yours and the Luftwaffe, and what bombing campaigns are going on. The bombing campaigns are located down here. And that is the other stuff that I was talking about. So we've got our red, green, and black targets over here. Yeah, these are great. These are the main victory point targets we want to go after. However, you do have other bombing campaigns that will take effect during certain segments of the game. Like we start with the sub bases. The sub bases are over here on this far right side of the map, and you need to conduct a bombing campaign against them, because if you got a little counter that you're going to put on this track here, if at any point this bombing campaign counter goes all the way to the right, you lose. At any point, effectively, you've done such a bad job leading the 8th Air Force that they have kicked you out and they're putting someone else in your place. So it's going to be sub bases, railroads, river crossings, landings. That's the beach landings, the V2s, the breakout, helping the Soviets, multiple different bombing campaigns. It's going to tell you right here what campaigns are active. They're not all going to be active at the same time. Like I said, you only start with the sub bases. So there's only 4 of these bombing campaign counters, because you're only going to have a few active at any one point. But you do need to keep track of which ones are active. If you do damage, you're going to tick this down. And if you don't do damage or they have whatever points, it ticks it back up. But you want to make sure that you prioritize whatever campaign is going on during that turn, as well as the other stuff that you're trying to bomb. So it gives you other things to focus on. You can't just target the main things, go after Berlin for the big points and the big win. You've got these other side objectives that you have to target or you lose. I like that. It makes it to where maybe you would avoid a lane because it has a lot of Luftwaffe or fighters located in it and you don't want to go down that lane. Well, you might not have a choice. You might have to take out those bridgeheads. And if that's the case, you're just going to have to scream in there and hope your bombers survive. There is a little turn phase thing up here at the upper right. It does remind you that the fact that you start at phase 4 for the very first turn of the game, you don't start at the beginning of it. So use this and our other player aid that comes with the game. And these are both one-sided. So just single side you have to worry about. This is what you're going to roll on. So all your combat results, all this stuff that you're rolling is going to be referenced here on this chart. And you'll see that there's a lot of greens and reds, unless you're colorblind, and then you're not going to be seeing shit. But that's what I'm talking about, that you have to use either their specific dice or at least pick 2 different colored dice that you can use and reference. Like our Luftwaffe new group placement that we're getting ready to do here. It has the green along the top and the red along the side. So it will matter on what color the dice are. But you see here, it's combat results, damage destroyed, and it's really cool too. Okay, you guys will see it when it comes into the combat, but like your combat results and your damage destroyed are both rolled at the same time, but it's just a simple red D6, a green D6, but the chart has all this stuff going on, but they've simplified it to make it just easy to understand. I really like that. All right, so let's start talking about the game proper, get into it a little bit. Now, what I have done here is I went ahead and I started deploying the Luftwaffe forces, started doing my setup. I've already got all the counters. All your main bombing target counters will be placed on the board. So whatever is active to be bombed, that turn will be placed on the board. So these green tokens, red tokens, the black tokens, they're all set up over here. Plus our 2 submarine target tokens are located there. All right, but those are our targets, all right? But we have to deploy certain Luftwaffe forces. Now, that is going to be located here on your calendar, like I said. At the very top of it, it tells us what we start with. I start with 1 P-38, 2 B-17s, and a B-24, and all of them have 1 squadron with them. So you see the fighter here, that little 2 counter, goes with that, and then there are bombing squadron counters you place under the others, and that basically adds to their attack power. So you see their numbers. This is all located here. It says 3. That's what you're going to look at with their attack value, right? That's their attack value. But you get to add whatever squadrons are located with them. And plus those squadrons get taken out before the groups. So a counter with a plane on it is a group counter. The white ones are squadron counters. All right. And it's the same way with these Luftwaffe forces that we have up here. These are the ones that are starting against us. And for that, we have 3 Focke-Wulf 190s, 6 BF-110s, and 1 BF-109 School. BF-109 School is this 2 here. We have 3 Focke-Wulf 90s that I already rolled for. So in my initial rolls, I got lane 2, 3, 5, and 6 for all of these. You're going to start with the most powerful, which are the Focke-Wulf 190s, and then step down to the next powerful. That's the BF-109, and then I've got 6 of these BF-110s. I saved these to roll on so I could show you guys how deployment is going to work for the Luftwaffe forces. So I got 6 of these guys that have to be put out. When you are deploying the forces, especially here at the start, you are going to roll both your D6s And depending on what you roll, it's going to tell you a lane that they're going to go to. The only condition is that no lane gets 2 groups, so 2 counters with a plane and a number on it, before all the lanes have at least 1. So I know lanes 4, 1, 7, and 8 are going to have at least one of these BF110 rather counters on them, and then that will leave me 2 that will go somewhere else, and they'll end up doubled up. So we've got our Luftwaffe, new placement, green die across the top, red die along the bottom. And you're going to use this not only now when we're deploying the initial forces, but when the Luftwaffe gets repaired planes and new planes, you're going to use this to determine where they're going to go. So let's roll for one of these. We roll, we get a red 2, green 5. Green 5, red 2. First lane is a 5. That already has a plane in it. So we'll go to the next lowest number that does not have a plane. So we got 5. 3 has 1. 2 has 1. Now this one's going to go to 1. 1's filled. So we roll for a next one. And 3, 3. So 3 over to 3 puts it to lane 3. Next lowest is going to go to 4. So we place 1 there. So that's how it's going to work when you're deploying the Luftwaffe forces. You're always going to roll your green and your red die to determine where they're going to go on here. And if the lane isn't valid for whatever reason, in this case, I've got to have 1 aircraft in every lane before I can put doubles in any other lane, then you're just going to go to the next lowest one. All right, so we're going to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just place, to save myself a little time, one of these counters in 7 and 8 because I know they're going to get one. So might as well. And then we will roll for both the BF-110s and the the AA counter. So this counter gets deployed each turn, and it's going to increase the inherent AA rating of whatever lane that it's in, right? So you see there's AA numbers in every one of these squares, okay? So when you're conducting your air raids and trying to bomb whatever target it is, that number is going to be used to attempt to take out your aircraft. Sometimes they will have this AA +2 located in that lane, so they've got extra AA guns for that round. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I went ahead and I rolled for the others and I got them placed out. Our AA is located way over here on the left, the 4, which is actually good for me because I'm not going there. We got one more BF-110 here and one more over here. Now, we start with the RAF bombing in this phase. All right, so the first turn, this is what we start. Otherwise, we would do other things first. So in other turns, we would move the AA, which is just deploying like I just did, reinforce core areas. So basically these 3 areas are always going to try to have planes in them. So for example, let's just move these over. Let's say all of these fighters were in lane 3 and I had cleared out the fighters in these 2 lanes. It would adjust. So you would have a little something in each one of these lanes, these core areas, not necessarily over here, but in these core areas, the Luftwaffe is going to try to do that, spread their fighter protection out. So there's a little something in each one of those lanes. Then any new planes that you're getting or any refitting that you want to do, you're going to do. I'll touch on that a little bit more after we do our bombing campaigns here. And then any new bombing campaigns. So if the bridges or the V2 rockets over here, if those were getting added, then you'll take their counters and you start adding them to the board. As you play through the game, you're going to start losing some of these far right lanes because Germany retreats, right? So you'll hit certain points in the game and the calendar and it'll tell you Germany retreats, so you'll lose lane 8 and then lane 7, blah, blah, blah. And they'll keep retreating on back up until these core areas. See right here, retreat track 7 and 8, retreat track 6, retreat track 5. So at some point in the game, you're going to have just the left half side of the board. Now, when it comes to the RAF bombing thing, let me grab our other player right here. Occasionally, the RAF will attack and they might occasionally bomb a war industry target of your choice. Yay, good stuff. They don't do it a lot. Sometimes they do it. Sometimes they just kind of add to your bombing campaign. So you're going to have a couple of counters like this that are RAF bombers. You're only going to have one for 1943 and 1944, and then you have two that you can place out during 1945. So depending on what you roll on this chart, if you get an NA, you don't get anything. If you get a 1, you do get to bomb a war industry target of your choice. And if you get the X, then you place the RAF bomb counter on a target that's already bombed. So what effectively that does, just to give a quick example, is using Munster again. Let's say this target was already bombed and I rolled the X, I could place that there. And if the Germans were to repair that target, they would roll to repair that. Instead of actually taking that bombing counter off, I would take the RAF counter off instead. So basically, it's extra bombed for that turn and gives less of a chance for the Germans to be able to remove it. Cool stuff. But let's roll a D6 for 1943, see if we get a 5 or 6. We didn't, so we don't have to worry about it. So we'll just take our RAF counter off. Now, next thing should be set up our missions. Yeah, mission construction. Okay, mission construction is where you're going to use these boxes down here, and you're going to place your bombers and fighters in them and pick targets that they're going to go after. To make this a little easier on my camera, I'm going to slide this over just a little bit, because I'm actually going after target 8 because we are in the middle of the submarine bombing campaign. Let's bring my bombers over here. Now, I have 2 different types of bombers. I've got the B-24 and I've got the B-17. So they can go as far as they want. So these targets are fine. Doesn't matter. I could hit any target on the board with these guys. I've also got P-38s. P-38s can go up to the interior, okay? So they can go into this middle lane, but they can't get farther than that. Each one of these guys has a squadron with them, so they're a little bit more powerful than what is initially shown. Now, the thing is, though, is you can't mix and match bombers. I can mix and match fighters. I can have whatever escort fighters I want with a mission, but I can't do the same with bombers. Cool part is I know there's not a whole lot of resistance over here, so this is a good time for me to try to get these targets. You're going to pick what targets you're going after, place them over in this lane, and you're going to set the bombers in the order that you're doing it, okay? So it's going to be the closest target first. Now, I'm doing this in hopes that it works out the way that I want. So what I am doing is I'm taking my best bombers, because I love the B-17. It's awesome. I can't mix the B-17 and the B-24, so it has to be a separate bombing run. So Brest is going to have 2 B-17s and the P-38 escort. And I know you're going, oh, well, the escort can go further, so why are you doing that? My hopes is that the BF-110 will attack the P-38 first. Since this is my first mission, I want them to attack here and not here, all right? That way I can hopefully take out this BF-110. That way the follow-on mission, which is the B-24, that is going after St. Nazaire, will not have the fighters to worry about. They still have the AA they have to worry about, but hopefully they won't have to worry about any Luftwaffe support. So you're going to do this with any target you go after, okay? So any of these targets here, depending on where they are, let's say we're doing this here, we'll do that, and that, all right? If we were going down this core line of 3 here, if we were going after these missions, we would go after Munster first, which is coastal, then Dusseldorf, which is interior, and then last Friedrichshafen. a long German word begins with F way up there, deep. You would place your bombers accordingly. This mission, the coastal mission, always goes first, then whatever interior mission, and then your deep missions. Yeah, and you do your lanes accordingly. So place these back up. Yeah. But keep that in mind as you're doing it, that whatever coastal stuff, if you're bombing it, it flies first. So that's probably where you want to put your escorts, or at least that's what I've found so far in my time playing the game. Same with interior and then deep. But deeper in, you're going to have more AA. You'll notice the AA here is 3, then it's 5, then it's 7. So the AA increases as you go in. All right, so let's execute our raids here and let you guys see how this is going to work. Now, we've got our BF-110 here. This is our first raid into Nazi Germany. We are sending in 2 of the B-17s, 1 P-38 escort, and they are going after the submarine pen here at Brest. You have to roll if there are Luftwaffe groups, and depending on where they are is going to determine if they're going to come after you, okay? So do they scramble? Do they come after you? If it's coastal, you're looking at this column, interior, this column, deep, this column. The farther you're going in, the more likely it is that the Luftwaffe is going to scramble. They can potentially roll half. And just as an example here, let me set it out for you guys. Let's say that they scrambled and it was half, okay? Half was scrambled and this was what was in the lane. A 6, a 1, and a 1, okay? You split them all up according to their group, okay? So we have 3 groups here, and you have the strongest to the left, all right? So if we have this 2 over here in there as well, let's just say that's our groups, the 2 would go right in there. So it's always strongest on the left. If it's half, you're just going to count out the odds. So this one and then this one, 1 and 3, are going to scramble and attack your fighters and bombers. 2 and 1 wouldn't. Doesn't matter how many groups are in the lane, that's how you're going to do it. 1, 3, 5, 6, or 5, 7, whatever group is going to join an attack, okay? Real simple to understand. All right, putting those back, I think that's where they were, but we'll go with it. All right, so for us, since we only have 1, if we roll half or we roll for all, it doesn't matter. We're still going to have a interception. So you see it's none, half, or all, and increases, like I said, the deeper you go in. Roll for it. We got 4. 4 is half. So we are going to get intercepted by this one group. Now, air combat is simultaneous, and it is going to be fighter versus fighter. So it's going to be my fighter group, which is going to be the P-38s with their squadron. The squadron gives them 2. So I've got a total of 5 against their 1. That's what we're looking at right now for the interception. So like I said, that's just my escorts against their interceptors. Bombers aren't in it yet. They will be. They will be. Here in a minute, any surviving Luftwaffe can potentially go after the B-1s. I keep wanting to say B-117s, B-17s. But right now it's not. So you're going to roll your red and green die, simultaneous attack for both, and you're going to look at your combat chart here. Depending on whatever your value is, your total combat value, up to on that column, and then stop. All right, so for my guys, I've got 5, so I don't quite have 7, so I'm going to be rolling on the 4 column. They have 1, so they're going to be rolling on the 1 column. All right, so that is for our red die, but our green die tells us what happens down over meow. Okay, so the red will tell you how many losses, and the green tells you what type of losses. When you're looking at this, you see it says at the top, damage destroyed. So whatever number is on the left goes up into this damage area that I mentioned earlier. Whatever is on the right will go to the destroyed area. Just remember, you lose squadrons before you lose groups. And that's always across the board. So any of these white style counters, that underneath counter, the Germans can have them just like my guys can have them. No matter what type of loss it is, whether it's damaged or destroyed, the Germans will always lose all of those squadrons before they start taking any of these type of counters off the board. All right, so let's roll for the Germans real quick, see what they get. They got nothing. So their red die is a 1, 0, so I don't have to worry about anything on that. So we're not going to have anything. They cause 0 casualties. Now, mine being a 4, combat factor of 4, it's not likely to cause a whole lot of damage anyway. So I've got one better chance to cause damage than they do. So for my guys, we got pretty good. We got a 6, which is going to be 2, doesn't matter because they've only got the 1, but 2, and then we're going to look at the green 2, and that tells us 2 damaged, 0 destroyed. Would have been better if we had 1 destroyed, but is what it is. So we take the BF 110 and it goes up here into their damage pile. And that's it for our air combat. But we still have the combat of the bombers actually attacking Brest. Our fighters have done their job now. They have a chance to do a fighter sweep later on after their attack if they want to. There's no fighters left to sweep, so it's not going to matter. But now is when we do our combat phase with any remaining Luftwaffe fighters and their AA value. Their AA value is only a 1. Our value is a 8 because we have 4 for each one of the BF-17s. Because they have the 3 plus the 1 squadron they start with. So for us, we don't really have to roll because there's no fighters we can take out. There's nothing left for us to do. Now, we are still bombing. We don't roll to bomb, okay? Here, all it is if you have any bombers that survive, that's it. They just have to survive. Then the target is bombed, all right? So we have a very good chance because they're only rolling again on the 1 column to see. So this is, like I said, their fighters plus whatever their AA value. They're just rolling on the 1 again to see if they cause any damages. So I'll roll for it real quick. They got a 3, which I do believe is nothing. Yeah, nothing on the 1. So they didn't cause any damage. So they have not destroyed or damaged any of my bombers. I would roll... And I would have got, let's see, that's not too bad. On a 8 column 3 would be just 1 and 1 for the 4. I would have just 1 damage, so nothing big, but it is what it is. They don't have any fighters left for me to take out, but I do get to draw a random bombing counter for Brest. Got the 4, so Brest has now been bombed, and this bombing run is complete. Like I said, you can choose to do a fighter sweep with any surviving fighters you have if you want to when you're returning from a mission. I don't want to. They only had 1 fighter. It's already been cleared out, so their mission is complete. Just like that, we're done. If all my bombers had been taken out, let's say they had a lot of fighter support here and plus the AA guns, and it was enough to wipe out my bombers, then Brest would not be bombed. That's what you're looking for. You don't necessarily roll to bomb the target. You just have to survive the run. If you survive the run with at least 1 bomber, then you've achieved your goal and you've bombed the target. So we got that one. Now let's run our St. Nazaire one really quickly. And like I said, I didn't put the escorts with them, even though the escorts could have gone with them, because I was hoping that the fighters would be taken out here. They don't have any surviving fighters. They do have an A value of 3. Let's roll for the 3. And hopefully they don't get a high roll. Of course they did. They got 1. So there's going to be 1, and it'll probably be damaged. 1 on the green dice. 3. Yeah, it's just damaged, but it doesn't matter because it's a squadron anyway. So that goes there. And we do bomb our target. So This one got the bombing counter of 6, and we'll bring it back. Damn. We lost 1 squadron of bombers. Not too bad to take out 2 of their sub pins. We'll bring these back over, and we took out their BF-110s that were located right there. All right, so that took me a little while longer than I originally was planning, but I yapped and I was looking over stuff. But that is the basic gist. So just to give you the FYI, we have completed the January turn. February, we would still have the sub-pen going. Now, our sub-pen bombing campaign, for that turn, I grabbed the wrong player aid, this player aid. For that turn, it would have been there, and we would have ticked it down 2 because we took out both of them. None of them are still there. Any unbound ones would tick it back up to the right, but it will stay there. There is a chance when the Germans roll for their repairs for this, anytime they'll roll a D6 for it. If that D6 matches whatever number is on that, then that gets removed. So you can potentially have to go back after the target again. You're never going to have it to where you take out a target and you think, I'm good for the game. Like, I'm done. Unless the bombing campaign's done. So this submarine bombing campaign only lasts until the rest of this year. It lasts for 12 turns. All right. So after December, you don't have to worry about the sub pins anymore. But now I've taken those out. I've got those down. If they repair one, which there's a good chance between now and December, they'll repair probably both. But if they do, I have to shoot back over there and get them again. But until then, I can start focusing my efforts over here in the core area and start going after these war industries that I want to take out. Now, each turn, though, I'm going to start getting new stuff. They would get 2 new fighters, and I would get a P-47 with a squadron. The next turn after that, they get another fighter and 2 fighter groups, and I get another P-47, so still got just the same bombers. After that, they add another BF-109. I get a P-38. No, I don't get a P-38. P-38 gets removed. And you have something in parentheses. Actually, it's both of ours. On that turn, anything in parentheses gets removed. So if their BF-109 school has the parentheses on it, it gets taken out. It's effectively out of service at that point. All right, so I touched earlier on the victory point track, okay? I want to talk about that again for just a sec because, like I said, it does come into play and it is the main thing on this. If this were real turn, I'm really playing this game out, I would be doing some scoring for their victory points. And you get it by getting your victory points to positive. I checked it. It is 140, so it would be 130 maxed out, and then the 9 track over here maxed out. Boom. You lose if the Germans get it there. But when it starts off, the Germans are going to have more victory points going in their direction. They're going to get victory points just for your groups, not your squadrons, but your groups being in the damage thing. So again, groups are things with a picture on it and a number. So not little white counters, not those. Those are the squadrons. The groups actually have a name. P-38, P-17, P-47, whatever. That's a group. Any of those in the damage pile, the Germans get victory points, but they're mainly going to come from the war industry targets, which are the black ones spread across the board. The red and the green ones, you can slow down their manufacture. So you can slow down their reinforcements by bombing those targets. But to actually win the game, you go after the black targets. They get 1 victory point for every one of these that's not bombed, and you get 1 victory point for every one that is bombed. And then there's actually a victory point for having all of the German targets bombed. So right here is Berlin, or not the German, the Berlin targets. So they have a green, red, and black up here. If you get all of those, then you get a victory point. If all of those aren't bombed, then they get a victory point. But generally speaking, you're looking at these black targets. Well, right now, I don't have any, right? I don't have any of them bombed. and none of the Berlin stuff is bombed. So it's like 9 or 10 points, I think. Yeah, I think it's 10 points because none of these are bombed, and there should be 9 of the black targets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so they would get 10 points. So I would tick this down 1 in their favor on the 10s track in their direction. So you see, they've already got an advantage. They're going to tick up that scorecard against you right off the bat. You're going to have to work hard to not only slow down their production, because you're not going to be able to win if they can just reproduce any of the fighters that you take out, right? So you want to slow that down. But on top of it, you have to start gunning for these targets because, like I said, there is a swing to it. You can't just wait and try to gun down all those targets at the end when you've built up your forces. And the reason is because they are gaining points throughout the game. If you hit certain points of the game and the point score is too high in Germany's favor, you'll never be able to swing it back down in your favor within the allotted time frame, so you've already lost. But on top of that, you have to worry about the bombing campaigns because you get sacked, you lose if any of those get maxed out. So like I said, you are juggling so many balls up in the air all at the same time between trying to reduce the amount of air power that you have to fight, hitting all of the bombing campaign targets, or at least making sure you had enough that you don't get fired, and then hitting enough of these to actually get the points to swing in your favor to slow down their buildup of points. Because if they steamroll you too much at the start, you can never bring it back. And then, like I said, on top of that, you know roughly that most of the German aircraft are going to concentrate here in the core area. All right, the rules are just set up that way, but you never know what or where, right? They're going to be over here. So there's just a tremendous amount of replay value in this game. I really got to give it to them. All right, so here's some final thoughts on it. Originally, I thought this game was, beer and pretzels, just something light, small little box, something I could throw out on the table and just poke around at for an evening, not have to really think too much about. It's not. There's more game in here than I gave it credit for by a large margin. Like I said, the big thing for this game comes down to how many plates you're having to spin all at the same time. And you're trying to figure out where best to use your forces. Is it best to slow down their production? Maybe they've got too many aircraft on the board and you're getting overwhelmed. So you have to slow down targeting their war industries and start targeting their factories and their oil refineries instead, right? Because these will do things like either repair damaged aircraft or bring new aircraft onto the board. So maybe you got to target there. Or maybe you've got control of that. Maybe your fighters have done well clearing the lanes and you have a good chance to go on a run and you start targeting these war industries. But like I said, at the same time, you can't rest back because they're going to have bombing campaign things over here that are going to require your attention. If you ignore those, you could have everything over here bombed. You could have all this cleared out and you'll lose the game because you ignored the bombing campaign stuff. And all of a sudden that ticks up and they're like, well, you didn't do anything. You didn't help the landings. You didn't take out the V2 missiles. So your campaign's over. You're fired. That's what I like about this game, that it really is so much more of a brain burner than I ever anticipated. There never really is a time that you can just sit back and relax. You're always having to think about what you're doing on your next turn, what you're doing with the forces, what items that you have, like what aircraft you have coming up, what aircraft you have going out. Because like I said, one of the first aircraft you're going to lose is P-38. It gets taken away. It's out of service, right? So the same thing happens to the German forces. It's not just your forces, but occasionally you're going to lose forces. So if next turn I'm losing that, well, I'm going to take that escort and I'm going to put it on the most dangerous mission because screw it, I'm going to lose it anyway, right? But like you see here with my campaign, it started off relatively easy because I had an easy run over here on these submarine factories. So that tells me that now I can take a couple of good turns and try to burn down some of these harder targets and slow down their acquisition of victory points. Like lane 1 here only has 2 BF-110s in it. If that's the case, I can target these victory points and maybe even Berlin, because Berlin is hard to get to and it has an 8 intrinsic AA value. So I can take and try to gun that down and take those victory points away from them, swing it more in my favor, slow down their acquisition of points, because it's not going to be positive victory points for you until many turns into the game. You're going to have to build your forces and actually start picking some of these targets off. And then slowly you'll see them stop acquiring points. And then all of a sudden you start taking that victory point track back down in your direction. And you've got that positive momentum going. So yeah, is 8th Air Force worth a buy? Absolutely. The amount of game that you get in the box for what you're paying for it. I think I backed this at something like 40 because the Kickstarter was lower cost. But I think now I'd have to look it up, and I should have done this before I did the video, but it's somewhere around 50. It's not an expensive game. For the amount of game that you get in the box, yeah, absolutely. If you're into the air warfare of World War II, definitely worth a buy. Now, I haven't played 20th Air Force, but I know that that's the Pacific version of this one. So my guess is it's going to be very similar and play, the same strengths, but set in the Pacific, the island hopping campaign, whatnot. I'm going to talk to them, see if they want me to review that one as well. But for you, if you are into the European campaign, I would go with 8th. If you're into the Pacific warfare, then I would go with the 20th. If you want both, definitely jump on that one. And I know they've got a couple other games besides those two. I think they were all as a potential package deal. So there are other games that they have as well if you want to check those out. If you like these, definitely give those a look. But yeah, I can easily say 8th Air Force is worth a buy. The components are fine. It's a mounted board. I like laser cut counters. Some people don't. That might be a negative for you, but for me, I like them. You can clip them, you can not clip them. And like I said, there's deceptively more game in the box than you would anticipate it being here. And there's a substantial amount of replay value in here as you develop your strategies and learn the game and how best to use your forces. And the fact that the enemy aircraft are never going to be the same. They're always going to rotate around, so you can't ever come up with one set strategy to win. You can come up with a basic idea, but it's always going to play a little bit different. And then again, the dice gods might kill you off or might kill them off. It's really going to depend. So yeah, replay value up there. Component quality is good. It's not perfect, but it's good. So it's easily worth the price of admission. Anyway, that is going to be it for me. You guys stay tuned. I will talk to them about potentially reviewing 20th Air Force as well. You guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.